Good afternoon, everyone. Carousel Technology and ServiceNow would like to welcome you to our ServiceNow and InSource webinar, How to Align an Agile Approach with Your Outcome. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our first speaker. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Clarissa. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I see there's a great group of attendees from across the country. So no matter where you're calling in from, I'm thankful that you're here. I'm Chris Russick. I'm a ServiceNow Solutions Specialist supporting the U.S. Navy, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Today, we're going to go through a journey of how to roadmap and plan future work. Our goal is to provide you some insight so that you can properly fund and execute on your objectives so you may achieve desired outcomes in a project-like manner using the ServiceNow platform. We recognize that many of you on this call would like to do so in an iterative or agile-like manner, so we'll spend the bulk of our time on the Agile and SAFe principles. I'm joined by Mike Gardiaz, our elite partner from InSource, and Lynette Herbst, ServiceNow's own advisory solutions consultant for strategic portfolio management, who supports the DoD. Thank you both for joining today. Lynette, would you like to introduce yourself and pass the mic to Mike Gardiaz when you're done, please?
Sure, Chris. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Chris said, I'm Lynette Herbst with ServiceNow, a solution consultant focused on strategic portfolio management. I spent most of my career as a practitioner in this space, so I'm really excited and looking forward to sharing what we have to offer with the SPM toolset. And with that, I will pass it off to Mike.
Good afternoon, good morning to everybody who's here, wherever you are. My name is Mike Gardiaz. I am the SPM Practice Director at InSource, and much like Lynette, lots of experience as a practitioner. I've been with InSource for over 6 years and have great experience in various technologies that do similar things. So we can talk about pros and cons of ServiceNow, mostly pros, of course, and then also looking forward to getting into some of the methodology discussions and the best practices and how ServiceNow can facilitate a successful transition and agile implementation for you and your organization. So this next slide is just a little bit about InSource to get started. InSource is an elite partner, as was alluded to previously, and we have professionals that sit on top of many practices. Today, we're going to be focusing on ITBM, which is actually now SPM, but we have a collection of expertise in each one of these modules here, as you see, that offer guidance, perspective from a practitioner's background, as well as experts in the technology as well. Just real quick here, what I want to get into is that we have product line achievements. And for those of you who are unaware what a product line achievement is, it means that you satisfy sort of the triangle of excellence, if you will, for ServiceNow. And that means we have a certain amount of certifications and certified implementers. We have completed a certain amount of implementations, and we have a certain CSAT score that has been reached. And as you see here, with that, we have dedicated practices that surround our product line achievements. And again, SPM is right here in the center of this slide. In addition to that, we have similar expertise that's just as strong in ITOM, ITSM, ITAM, and CSM. So you'll see just a little bit about us. What we're very proud of is the fact of our tenure. We have a lot of our resources are committed experts that are very vastly knowledgeable within ServiceNow and have been within InSource for a collection of over 4 years. With even more ServiceNow experience. And I think our customer satisfaction really is encouraging. And last I checked, those in the top, I think, 2% or so of all partners in the ecosystem at 4.7 over 5. With that, I guess we'll get into a little bit of the strategic portfolio management overview. So I'll hand it back over to Lynette here.
Thanks, Mike. So I want to walk you guys through just a high-level overview that focuses on creating what this environment might look like, right? So if in anything that you might, if anything, please take away the fact that this is giving everyone visibility. So across the organization, whether your role is leadership, your role is development, your role is directors or managers, whatever it is, everybody is looking at everything holistically and has the same set of information. Want to build out there for a second, Mike? Okay. So at the core, we really want to look at our mission objectives, right? So with those objectives, what are they? It's security, it's freedom, it's protecting our homeland. And we want to stay focused on those objectives, eye on the prize, if you will, make sure that we're meeting those objectives. So how do we do that? The first step is planning, right? So understanding our strategies that align to those mission objectives. So in my experience, annually we would get a PowerPoint that aligns all of the strategies from leadership all the way down throughout the organization, top to bottom. We'd have meetings on these strategies. They likely come in a PowerPoint. We'd make sure everyone understood. Then we would store it away on our hard drive with a sea of other PowerPoints and documents, right? So kind of losing focus on where those strategies are throughout the cycle, right? So first we want to do is plan, and with SPM, you're able to do that with roadmaps and create that visibility for everyone from the top down and bottom up. The second step is aligning our investments to those strategies. So when we talk about what are we going to do for a given fiscal year, are we really just looking at the budget we have and trying to jam things in to where they fit? Or are we really making conscious decisions that we're aligning what our plan is to those strategies? And then the third is delivering work. So we have that alignment. We know as a developer or as a deliverer of that work, we know what our strategies are. We know our purpose. We know why we're doing something, and we're able to align that to the work as we deliver out. So plan, align, deliver, always focusing your eyes on the objectives and being able to maintain that visibility, again, for everyone are the best practices that we have here with SPM. So with the next slide, I'm going to get into a little bit more detail at each level. So the roadmap strategies, right? So there's things that we can do, tools that we provide, roadmaps that are hierarchical and allow you to see all of the strategies and all of the investments that align to those strategies. Keeping in mind that this is a living, breathing document that is very easy to pivot and change and move things around, being able to identify what priorities we have, but where we may have to shift. You know, we might not be able to continue down the same road that we are, but again, the importance is that visibility that we're seeing at this level, so everyone is playing from the same sheet of music. Some of the other key solutions when we talk about strategizing is investing. So when we make decisions on what we're investing in, how do we allocate our budget to those different investments? And how do we understand how we're doing with those investments, if you will? So in the bottom screen on the right, the strategic spend tracking, being able to see how we're doing, how we're aligning to our strategies and goals, and how we're doing financially against those strategies and goals. Aligning investments. So this is where we ask the question, right? We're looking here at our demand module and we're asking the question, should we do this? So this is a request that has come in. The very first thing that we asked, should we do this? Does it align to our strategies and goals? And then if that is true, then we need to answer a second question. And that second question is, can we do this? Do we have the right resources? Do we have the right budget to be able to do this? So with the demand tools, that intake and being able to vet and keep that alignment to the strategies, to the investment plan, you're able to see that within the demand module and understand and prioritize everything that you have in your landscape. From there, we also have resource capacity planning from there. So as we're vetting this request and demand and we're making decisions on what the schedule is going to be and we're understanding costs, we also want to understand our resource needs and make sure that those resource needs are available to us once we make this a live and living, breathing project. And then with scenario planning, we're able to take our entire landscape. So whether we're looking at things within our demand pipeline or projects that we're working on, we're able to look at those holistically from a financial schedule resource perspective, understand where we are from those perspectives, and then also being able to see and pivot if we need to. So when we talk about scenario planning, it's a little bit of what if. Things can happen in the middle of the year. we have to make a change. We have to pivot on what our plan is. How do we see all that information in one place and make those decisions to move on to a new plan to accommodate the situation?
Excellent. Thanks, Lynette. I think the message here is that we're doing more with less. So we're helping you do more with less and keeping all participants informed with accurate and timely information. So we've come to our first poll, and we'd like your participation, if you don't mind. We're interested in hearing about your current project management methodology. Take a moment to read the question and respond, and we'll close the poll in about 15 seconds to share the results. All right, Clarissa, how are we doing on the answers that are coming in?
We have a couple of people left to answer, so I'll give it another 10 seconds.
That's great. All right, do you want to show the results? Fantastic. So the question being, what is the project management methodology you and your teams currently practice, with a small amount being waterfall, most being hybrid? That's what I expected, and Agile and SAFe. And then, really, why are we here? And that's a lot of us are looking to move to an Agile and SAFe methodology. So, Mike, let's take it away.
Just one last thing here, Chris, from an SPM perspective that relates to the poll. So we know some of you waterfall, mostly hybrid, some all the way Agile. But one of the other key benefits of ServiceNow SPM is the ability to work in any of those methodologies. So if you're doing waterfall and you have a plan to move into Agile, the platform allows you to do that, allows you to grow with it. So continue to do waterfall, start to use the Agile applications, and being able to make that transition from a cultural organizational change in steps rather than a big bang. All of a sudden, we're going to do Agile, so everybody get used to it, right? Really, the idea is step into it. If you're waterfall and you want to progress, you can do that. If you need to stay in waterfall for certain things and Agile for others, you can do that as well. So the importance of that holistic picture of plan, align, and deliver any methodology here is aligned to those steps, right? So you don't have to take or use separate tools for your methodologies in order to keep your strategic portfolio management up and running. And with that, I will pass it off to Mike for some Scrum Agile fun.
All right, thank you guys very much. So for the remainder of this, we're going to get into that Scrum and Agile SAFe framework. And I think based on the poll, some of this should hopefully be significant and impactful to many of you. So, I'm going to start off with a few slides here that kind of go a little bit about from the basics, right? So obviously, on the left-hand side here, we have a traditional waterfall approach and the Agile planning and delivery. And for those of you who are still on the waterfall side there, I think what this is really illustrating is that you plan and then ultimately you get your value through building, running, and servicing, right? And, where the gaps are here, I'm sure as many of you have experienced, is that, misalignment, longer time realization of value, right? And, traditionally, this is the way enterprises and large, organizations in the world worked. But what's becoming more and more commonplace is that Agile planning and delivery, right? And the ability to continuously get the funds planned and build immediately, see those results as they occur, make the modifications and build into a backlog, right? Measure your outcomes, define what success looks like, and redefine it to continuously get better. And with the pressures and the continued mounting pressures to deliver now and deliver faster, the Agile methodology is certainly a way to get there, and the SAFe is certainly a more mature opportunity to take the principles of Agile and to continue to build on it to maximize your value and to continuously hit your desired results. With that, sort of to what Lynette had mentioned earlier, ServiceNow does remain one of the only platforms, I think in the industry, it's the only platform, if I'm not mistaken, it allows you to have a unified backlog, which can store stories, tasks, incidents, defects, all in a centralized backlog that's going to allow organizations the visibility into what one another is working on. You have a filter that can view all defects, all enhancements or problems. You can triage things. To the point made, this can be a state-of-the-art agile facilitation tool, but it also can be a state-of-the-art opportunity for you to leverage a industry best technology to get from a waterfall to an agile place seamlessly using best practices on all frameworks. And this again is just a supplemental iteration of what Lynette had shown previously, which was essentially the Scrum program's big planning board. And this is the SAFe big room planning board. So for those of you who had in the poll selected to be agile and SAFe or hybrid, right? You may be familiar with this view. And this view allows ultimately teams that are disparate in nature, right? You have your alpha dogs, your supplemental other teams, Bay City, etc. And you have the visibility within ServiceNow to view what's in the sprint iteration, what are my dependencies across other teams, and be able to see, what needs to get done in order for me to work. You can see there's a % complete indicator here as well. There is full transparency. And when you are in a SAFe environment, having the cross-functional skills and the matrixed organizations, being able to have this sort of view, you can imagine that the ability to prioritize work, identify bottlenecks, seeing those dependencies really goes a long way. And ServiceNow allows this board to be shared, seen, and in real time worked on if desired, right? You do have the opportunity to select features versus stories, arts versus program increments. It's a pretty powerful opportunity for you to take the most advantage of the work that you need to do to deliver. Okay. But so all of that comes down now to some of the top challenges in an agile transformation, right? So what I just started there with was, hey, here's kind of where we were, right? Here's kind of what it looks like. And ultimately there's that SAFe big room planning board. But the reality is, right, to get to this point takes a little bit of change, takes a little bit of change management, I should say, right? And commonly the top 5 challenges are often sort of a little bit of resistance, right? There could be an existing technology in place. There could be, management that has currently, maybe multiple tool sets that they're either weighing on or using or, swivel chairing. As a result, there's no ownership, right? Nobody feels like there's a single place of record. And ultimately, the worst of it is the inconsistent processes and practices that then affects multiple teams. And of course, because of that, communication deteriorates and collaboration becomes non-existent. So although the opportunity to take ServiceNow and run with it is a phenomenal choice and decision, there is 3 pieces to this, right? And it's people, process, tools. The tool is going to give you everything you need. The people and the process is where a lot of the challenges in the transformation occur. And I think we're going to highlight some of how do we get to overcome some of these obstacles in the coming slides. How can InSource as a partner leveraging our practice experience help you, and how we can combine the people, process, tool triangle to make you successful. So here I'll pause for another poll question.
Thank you, Mike. So for our next poll, we're interested in hearing about what obstacles you're currently facing as you transition to an Agile or SAFe project management practice. So please take a moment to respond. We'll close the poll in about 15 seconds to share the results again. All righty, Clarissa, how are we doing on responses there?
We still have a few people left who have not answered, so I'll give it another 15 seconds.
Sounds good. And correct me if I'm wrong, these responses are to help us with the continuing education responses. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. Thank you. All righty. So it looks like buying into the change process and mature seems to be the largest, other than obviously all of the above. We need help everywhere. So Mike, hopefully that helps you tailor the conversation a little bit more going forward.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with those obstacles, right, this is the kind of a perfect segue into this. One of the things that is imperative to do to get started is establishing the common vocabulary. It is not uncommon, right, where we engage with anybody, and there are people who are coming from various backgrounds, Department of Defense, commercial, it does not matter. The point being that there is no definition of what does it mean when we point a story? What does it mean to create a task? What is a story? What is a feature? And so it may sound elementary and it may sound rudimentary, but at the end of the day, we need to first establish the common vocabulary, the nomenclature, and the language that we're going to be using to make sure that everybody is clear and understand exactly what it is we mean when we say, let's create a story and break it out. What is the threshold, right? The flexibility, right, to adopt and continuous changing business requirements is just as important. That goes with a little bit of the culture, specifically for those that have voted mostly waterfall and potentially considering the move to agile. Really making sure that your organization or your department is in the best position possible to essentially have the right tools in place, the right nomenclature to understand when I make a change, when I do something, I have the ability to see where that stands. I understand what the dependencies are, and really with that, creating the common goals of understanding what agile means. I know how to make a change. I know what the impact of that change is. I know what the impact to other teams what impact other teams that change is going to make. And with that collection in combination of the vocabulary and the nomenclature, we have a definition of agile, the definition of done, right? Sprint velocity versus capacity, right? Really establishing that. And again, you cannot understate the success of an implementation until you have the foundations of what agile really means built out within your departments. So how does ServiceNow help you overcome those obstacles and those hurdles? ServiceNow is built upon the Scrum framework's best practices. So it's not anything that was made up by a bunch of smart technology guys in the back room. This is a time tested and proven methodology that was built by some of the most famous folks in the Agile world. And with that allows you to take what the best practices are and to put your fingerprints on it so that it makes sense within your processes, your tools, your people, your skill sets, etc. And so when you're moving away from your traditional approach and you're starting to leverage more of this, hybrid sort of opportunity to take advantage of Agile, the way ServiceNow really can help you is by taking advantage of hybrid project management. And one of the things that ServiceNow does extremely well is allow you to still run your sprint iterations, right? Still run your sprint cycles, build your backlogs, give you the visibility into the capacity of your team in a percentage. You can get the ability to see, hey, how booked is my team over the next 2-3 sprints? You can see that as you assign stories to your teams. But what's great about the hybrid approach is that you will also be able to still get a percent complete, right? You're still going to be able to set allocations, but report up to say what that really means in terms of hours. Because I guarantee when you're going through your transformation, if you were ever to say to somebody, hey, we accomplished 50 points in this sprint, that might not mean anything. But if you turn that message around and say, hey, it took us 120 hours to do this work, that means something more. And as you transition, you can never lose sight of the fact that, these are foundational aspects that, as everybody's going through the transition, needs to understand, and how we correlate, points to hours, and at least initially, right? How do we get you to this journey successfully and continue to stay on the same page about what things took versus what they were estimated, what a percentage of a release means in terms of a percent complete. You have the ability to still tie percent complete to a burn down of an epic or a story or a collection of stories. And you can always get your real-time hours to track back to points, which again, eventually the goal is to sort of be more true agile, right? And get away from that. But again, initially to start off, it gives you the opportunity. There is a roadmap that's prescriptive in the ServiceNow ecosystem to allow you to be successful following this sort of approach. And they work, right? And they work because, as mentioned earlier, it is and remains to be one of the only technologies in industry that allows you to have that unified backlog to really allow for teams to become more self-organized, right? One of the definitions of the agile practice is self-autonomy, allowing the team to make the best decisions, right? And self-empowerment. And when you organize, your teams and encourage the self-organization, they'll be more empowered to do things faster, quicker, better, deliver, right? Take more time and improve the quality in a self-regulating way, which is extremely important. And the other reason it works is because through some of the slides that we saw earlier in the presentation with the Scrum programs, it is all too common, right? Where you're going through an agile transformation or are hybrid, and you have some departments or units that are practicing agile, others that are not. So you're hybrid. Well, the Scrum programs allows organizations in a transformation to take the best advantage of ServiceNow in that you can have various teams on various sprint cycles and still see the dependencies. And that's where the Scrum programs board that Lynette had showed earlier really comes into play, where you've established your foundational concepts, you have your agile nomenclature, you have your definitions of done. Collectively, you moved past that, but now your struggle may be, well, I have team X doing it in a two-week sprint iteration. I have team Y working in a 4-week sprint iteration, but guess what? There's dependencies that tie to a single release. And the visibility that Scrum programs provides for release tracking, for dependencies, for bottlenecks as you move through your transformation and maybe ultimately aspirations into SAFe is invaluable for organizations to gain the right visibility, to make sure you're working off the right things at the right time and be in a position of value to provide value consistently. Okay. And I'll pause here for another poll question.
Excellent, thank you. So, Mike, we recognize that ServiceNow's strategic portfolio management can be used for traditional and non-traditional use cases. So for our final poll, we're interested in hearing how you leverage or how you intend to leverage the Agile or SAFe methodologies going forward on the ServiceNow platform. So take a moment to respond. Maybe we'll give about 30 seconds-ish for results this time. All righty, Clarissa, how are we looking here?
I'll give it another 10 seconds.
All righty. Excellent. Thank you very much. So it looks like this is interesting. Business and mission specific use cases. I was expecting more of the technology and software development side of the use, but all of the above. Quarter of the responses are all of the above. So very interesting, and we'll try and work that in as we go forward. Mike, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I think as we continue to move forward here, all right, we're going to get into a little bit of SAFe and I think, based on mission-specific goals and initiatives that we want to reach, or all of the above, a little bit about SAFe is going to be important to know, right? So this is a time, again, and tested and proven framework where, once more, SAFe is actually its own independent sort of arm, and ServiceNow has leveraged that SAFe framework and built those best practices into its own technology. Now, what it does is it builds upon the foundation of the principles that an agile transformation would. So what we're doing here is we're essentially maturing your organization. We're maturing your practices to take those cross-functional teams and really sort of build a matrix organization, a unit, I'll say, to allow you to build and hit your mission critical tasks, or build your software, or to allow you to execute to a strategy, etc. It really does allow you to take advantage of any one of the agile principles. So whether it's a Scrum framework, DevOps, Lean, XP, there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage SAFe when you are talking about building software, I'll say. And that software could be used for multiple reasons, right? It could be used to hit a mission strategy goal. It could be used to do a number of things. But what's great about SAFe is that, I know this is, Department of Defense, but it is used by over 1 million folks in the world, and over 20,000 extremely large enterprises. So it's not something that is by any means made up. I think that the visibility and the consistency that you see across the framework and what ServiceNow offers is very consistent. And there are quite a few benefits here, right? So as we talk about the, work left to right here and some of the benefits of SAFe, 10 to 50%. Now that's a large number. And I think it really depends upon, where are we talking? We talking public or private, et cetera, but generally, right? If we cast an umbrella here, it's a happier engagement of your workforce. And that's really because of the fact that you're leveraging the cross-functional skills. You're getting the opportunity to work with people that may see things a little bit different, but provide you more insight. And with that, right, you're challenging one another. You're continuously getting better every day at work. You're not just working with the QA team or the testing team or the strategy team, right? You're getting to work with a collaborative mix of, really smart professionals on a day-to-day basis, which is important, right? Makes motivated people, happier results, etc. Better results, I should say. And then we have a faster time to market. That is by no means a mistake there, right? The 30 to 75%. What you see here is that when you start looking at the Scrum framework or the SAFe framework, and you see that, it's built upon quality, and that quality is based upon those cross-functional teams. If in the traditional sense, you may have, in the software world, right, somebody doing some configuration and another developer doing the testing. But really what the SAFe environment does, and you have your cross-functional teams and that are, potentially even matrixed within a unit or team, you're going to be able to have different people step up to the plate, review and validate that, something's working as intended. And by doing so, right, that quality is built into the initiative, right? Whatever it is that you're working on, the framework hones in on quality being imperative. And when you focus in on quality, you're working on fewer defects, and those fewer defects allow for a faster time to market. And so it's pretty significant there. When we talk about improvements to quality as well, obviously I just threw out some of the numbers there. The improvements to quality are based upon much of very similar aspects there in terms of the defects. Many large organizations have reported as upwards up to 40 to 55% reduction in defects or missed requirements, etc. And then you have productivity, right? 20 to 50%. Organizations, including ServiceNow has mentioned themselves that they have become 22% faster to get things to market. When I think about this, and I just kind of something we all can relate to is, a company like Apple. A lot of folks have an Apple iPhone. Every year they come out with a release and they don't miss it. It's always in September or October, right? And when you're able to confidently have your quality, time to market, motivated employees, that's just one commercial company doing something, right? But in the real world, as it relates to the DoD, mission critical strategies, it's possible because of the way the framework is set up and positions employees and what it asks of resources to be able to produce something to be successful. So I think, the benefits of SAFe are significant. You know, and it starts with that agile journey of being hybrid, or being waterfall, transitioning to hybrid, taking advantage of those Scrum programs, and then moving into, you know, sort of the SAFe environment, where again, you know, these metrics are pretty impressive, right?
So it's safe to say, Mike, that you're going to save money on your projects, being able to manage your time to market and your productivity, and you're going to be able to deliver what is needed by your service members in the end. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's 100% correct. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. And this right here is the SAFe, right? In terms of its construct. Now, what ServiceNow is essentially equipped to provide at this point is the essential SAFe and the portfolio SAFe. And if we read this left to right, what you're going to see is you'll have your teams, right? I'm going to focus right here on the essential piece beneath this gray line, but you'll have your business owners, right? This is sort of where your vision's coming from. And ultimately you have your agile teams, and they can work in any fashion, right? They can work in a XP, Scrum, Kanban, as we had mentioned before. But the collection of these teams, right? And regardless of sort of the execution technique, you're going to be able to have team backlogs, right? And these backlogs are going to be able to allow you to have visibility and a centralized location for many departments or units to be able to say, what are we working on? What are other folks working on? What are our dependencies, et cetera? And we can have releases on demand, right? So that means, that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I have to hit something on September 1st, and that's what I'm working towards. Being able to have supplemental, we'll say minor releases out the door is entirely possible. And you can develop arts for those. You can have a larger art, which stands for Agile Release Train, with product features. And that's up here actually, right? This Agile Release Train. So you can release on demand within your release train and have continuous deployments, continuous exploration, continuous delivery to be successful. So, you know, this is sort of your entry-level baseline opportunity to take advantage of the SAFe enterprise. But with this, again, we cannot understate the importance of the team environment and the maturity level that's required, right? We want to make sure we successfully get you here, successfully build up the ability to save that time, save that money, work cross-functionally, and deliver faster. But, you know, this is the entry-level version of the SAFe solution. And then on top of that, right, you have your portfolio view. And what that is, it's like a pane of glass over the essential, where now you're going to be able to see, you know, your lean budgets, some financial data there, right? You're going to be able to see your portfolio backlog and really start from a bigger picture, coordinating various epics and those dependencies and enablers to make sure that you're hitting your KPIs and delivering the appropriate solutions along that that agile release train. And right, so what we want to make sure that we kind of point out here is, and this is again part of that nomenclature, is, you know, these enablers, you know, the definition of what that is. And what's nice about the SAFe framework is that, yes, it's easy to understand, but complex to execute too, right? That we all heard that before. But, you know, the ability to plan out and the time given to plan out, that's what those enablers are, right? Prior to getting into the execution of anything, let's make sure we have the right coordination and time to really think and plan this thing out. We can build our portfolio and program backlogs out, maybe some high-level stories even, understand what the budget impact is. Are there any strategic themes or visions that we need to attack to, right? And that's where you start seeing the value of the portfolio, okay? So the portfolio really gives you that high-level glance of who are these owners, who are these architects, what are we working on at the highest level, what are the costs, right? These value streams that we're going up against. And then the essential is really that continuous delivery, right? Being able to make sure that regardless of how we're doing it, there's continuous delivery, there's continuous integration amongst my teams. We have, you know, sometimes, you know, multiple releases on demand, and we're being able to deliver things securely and a high quality capacity for whoever our consumers might be. So this is that overall slide. It does highlight sort of everything that ServiceNow is able to do within the tool, leveraging the SAFe framework.
Hey, Mike, kind of throw an audible here for you, if you don't mind, sir. Can you talk to us a little bit about how demands that come in turn into epics and what that process looks like from somebody evaluating those demands that are coming in?
Yeah, so that's going to be a little bit outside of the realm of the Agile piece, but demand is just a foundational concept to be successful in SPM, right? The demand management module is going to allow you to create whatever that epic story, right? In this case, I think that question was around epics, would be, and it would go through its process. Now, what's going to happen is as you submit that demand, if you're licensed and able to leverage, and we're assuming you are here, the SAFe or Agile platform, that is going to be able to then be logged under in ServiceNow, within ServiceNow, as a story or an epic, etc. Right? And the Scrum owner or the product owner, whoever has the right roles in the tool, right? That's something that's InSource is going to be able to help you out with, would then be able to take that story or epic and triage it appropriately to the team, potentially place it in a backlog, etc. But essentially, before it even gets there, I think is, that demand management application module is going to allow you to appropriately vet that epic. Is this mission critical? Is this an MVP, a part of an MVP, something that's minimally viable, that we have to ensure we hit, that you can vet the business case for, the justification for, place it in the backlog appropriately, and then execute to either in an Agile, SAFe, or Scrum program fashion. But essentially, that demand management application is going to be the point of entry for many stories, for many epics, and then be vetted by, demand managers and program managers or whoever, however it's structured within your org to be placed for execution correctly.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time for that.
Absolutely. All right. And then, so, why choose, whether it be Agile, SAFe, etc. Intelligent process, as it simply states, means intelligent automation. When you're taking industry best practices continuously, whether it be from Agile 2.0 or literally taking that SAFe framework and taking a technology that's going to allow you to successfully transition from, one methodology to the next, leveraging those best practices, you're not only positioning your team in a position to succeed, you're positioning your organization to continuously deliver. And what I mean by that is, the industry best practices are going to essentially force you and your organization to take a closer look at your processes. Who's doing what? What are the handoffs? So to the point, to the question asked earlier, if I have a demand and I want to put an epic in, who's doing that? Why are they doing that? Let's take a closer look at that. Based upon what the Scrum framework and Agile methodology are built upon, here's who really should be doing that. Is there a gap? Is there not a gap? How do we make sure that we lead you down the best practices of continual configuration and not customization? What does the maintenance of the technology look like and who's doing that? So when you're choosing Agile 2.0, you're getting an out of the box best practice platform with a partner that's going to be able to lead you continuously down the road of success to make sure that between the people, process, tool component, you're always taking advantage of, doing the right things, delivering consistently, and continuously adding value. And then one of the things that I really wanted to hone in on here just quickly is, we at ServiceNow and InSource have a really neat tool set that allows for organizations to transition to ServiceNow. Now, again, when we do a transition from a tool set, I know that this is very sensitive in many organizations. And the point being here is that there's a spoke with Integration Hub. Some of you may have considered that or looked into it and say, well, hey, we do a lot of things out of Jira. And guess what? I'm not here to poo-poo Jira. Jira is a great tool, right? But what I'm here to tell you is that ServiceNow can do much of the things that Jira cannot. Obviously, it's clearly much more mature, and I don't think there's even an argument there. But so what we have done is we essentially enhanced the spoke that comes out of the box with Integration Hub to make sure, based upon our industry expertise and implementation, we've taken the voice of the customer, right? What we've done is we have a pre-built transform map of commonly used data points in Jira, and we've modified that the screen in ServiceNow, the stories, the tasks, etc., to be able to easily accept those data points that are commonly used, leveraging our pre-built transfer map from Jira So we have a seamless integration and allows ServiceNow to be the single point of truth. Now, oftentimes organizations begin with a transformation from, Jira to ServiceNow and say, well, we're really used to this. I want to use it. Fine. And ServiceNow becomes that nice, clean pane of glass because it's built off those industry best practices. The reporting's consistent from team to team, from portfolio to portfolio, the budget, the money, all the data, right, that's associated with running a project, from budget to KPIs to, sprint burn downs, iterations. It's all consistent in ServiceNow. And you can take the inconsistent data that's coming from another platform, put it in ServiceNow, and then have that. And ultimately, what we've seen is that organizations just tend to gravitate towards ServiceNow to the point where, hey, both are kind of doing the same thing, but one's giving me a cleaner view of data. Why don't we just continue to use ServiceNow? I'm happy to continue to have that conversation and work with you and talk about that. But it's a lightweight implementation that allows you to take advantage of ServiceNow's Agile 2.0 platform, leveraging common data points. And again, to make modifications to a transform map, to be able to accept data points a little bit easier into ServiceNow from Jira is very easy, right? And it's a matter of understanding what that is, how that data comes in, and how we modify what we've already built, leveraging the best practices. So this is something that, it has to do with ServiceNow because it's ServiceNow spoke, right, from Integration Hub. But it has to do with InSource because we have essentially taken what ServiceNow has built and we have modified that spoke to ensure that we're in a position to take multiple Jira instances with multiple various data points and consistently align that data to provide value and in ServiceNow as a single pane of glass. So you have consistency in how you read that data. So that is a unique component that we can certainly assist organizations or units with as well.
Mike, talk to me real quick, if you don't mind, on that last slide. If some of our customers want to let some of their development teams stay with Jira, but some of the management teams want to stay with ServiceNow, is that a possibility, and how would that look?
Absolutely. It's not uncommon, actually, where you would have some teams continue to use Jira, but the management teams maybe used into ServiceNow. And in fact, it's common, right? When you get into agile technologies, it's almost like talking religion. You just don't do it. People get very close to it, get very married to it. And again, I'm not here to persuade you to go all in on ServiceNow. What I do want to hone in on is the message that by allowing organizations or teams or units, whatever they're called, to use Jira, they can absolutely do that. But what I want to make sure that it's crystal clear that your management team can then receive that same data. Keep your teams working the way they're used to working. There's no problem with that. But your management team can now log into ServiceNow and view things across an entire, unit, department, the entire Department of Defense if they wanted to, and see things consistently. It's all going to be read the same way. And that's the value of it. You don't have to change the way you do things. It's just an opportunity to have a single pane of glass to see things reported in a consistent manner when oftentimes things are inconsistently reported.
Excellent, thank you. And last question for you on this slide is, if some of our customers were facing an end of life for a contract on Jira, hypothetically, what would be an average time to be able to move maybe one project at a time? Is there a baseline, or is there obviously you have a standard process to do that, but maybe you talk to how quickly you could do that for us?
Yeah, it's pretty much it's a quicker implementation, right? So it would probably be a set of workshops for a few weeks. And traditionally that's about a 4-week process. Because we have a pre-built transfer map, we're probably talking a week and a half to 2 weeks. And then we get into configuration of that, which could be an additional maybe 2 to 4 weeks at most. And then we want to obviously do some testing. So it is a quick, rapid implementation that basically, rather than asking you, hey, how do you want to see things done? We come to you and we're prescriptive. And that's the difference, right? We want to understand what your value is and what you need to be successful, but based upon our experience and our know-how, we're able to also come to the table to you and show you what you'd want to do to stay within best practices for a quick implementation that's going to give you the value. And that's why, the timeline could vary, but look, we've done it as quick as 6 weeks, and, sometimes it takes 12 weeks, right? It all depends on, the engagement of the customer, how active they are and how much they work with us, because it takes two to be successful.
Fantastic. Thank you. So talk to me about adopting a strategic portfolio management strategy.
Yeah, and that actually kind of alludes to the advisory solutions a little bit as well. The strategy is really going to be around, how are you implementing SPM, right? There's foundational components of SPM that you can't walk away from. Things like demand that were brought up, things like resource management, right? Agile 2.0 and SAFe are critically important, but if you were consider an iceberg, it's the top, right? It's what everybody sees. Oh, you're doing that. Oh, that's so cool. That's important. But there's so much work and emphasis that needs to be placed upon making sure we have our processes in place with the right people in the right place at the right time, tracking our money, having our budgets in place to be able to execute effectively. And one of the things that we do at InSource is provide you with industry best practices based upon our ability and practitioner experience to make sure that you're doing all of those things, right? That we're positioning you to take advantage of that, right? Do you need to look at investment funding, right? What are the financial metrics that are most important? How are you leveraging your resources, and on how many teams are they on, right? Versus what's the best practice there? What sort of sets of technology are you using, and how do they integrate within ServiceNow? So, not to mention all the other things, right? Like projects in a hybrid approach. These are the things that when we map about a strategy and an SPM execution path, building out roadmap with you, these are the things that InSource can confidently come out and tell you, we've been there, we've done it, we've been successful, and we're eager to work with you to do the same thing, right? And the roadmap is going to be dependent upon a few things, right? And those few things are what I just reiterated. So I know that it's a little bit of an open-ended question, but in a broader audience, I just wanted to make sure that I covered all aspects, because there's so much to SPM and a roadmap to success here that need to be considered.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. I'd just like to take a quick opportunity to talk about how this ties into the overall platform, because today we've talked about ideas and demands coming in, how they are weighed and how they're aligned to one another, or how are they prioritized. And that often is a tug between those new ideas and new innovations coming in and the strategic architecture that the command might have, and that fights for money, right? So that's where the demand pipeline comes into play and the investment planning comes into play. So our goal here today was to hopefully help you understand how these ideas coming in and how the investments that are tied to them are able to be executed on in an agile-like manner, or a scaled agile manner, using your epics and your stories, features, enhancements, et cetera. Now, it would be remiss to say that, in some of these projects, incidents, problems, and changes do crop up, and that's why it's important to understand that having one platform and one data model is very helpful. So when the call centers get a phone call saying that something has gone bump in the night, that is accounted for in your project, and you can move forward to remediate that defect in one fell swoop. Being able to have workflows that are binding all of that together to make sure that nothing goes untouched, and those incidents, problems, and changes do become managed. So I think that pretty much wraps everything up here today. Clarissa, do we have time for some questions?
Thank you, Chris. Yes, we do. At this time, we would like to open the floor for questions. Please use the Q&A pod on the bottom of your screen to ask any questions you may have. I believe there was a question in the chat where it says, I didn't quite understand the relationship between the two companies. So InSource is a third-party training arm?
That's a great question. I apologize. ServiceNow obviously is the platform. We are the product, and many of our customers choose to implement the product using third-party companies like InSource. InSource is one of our elite partners that does provide the implementation, the training, the advisory services, and really anything else related to the success of the product in your organization. Mike, did I miss anything there? Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, that's right. We are partners with ServiceNow, and we do a lot of the implementation, as Chris said. So I would just say, we come with a lot of practitioners at the helm that have been there, done it, and are, a proven track record of success to get you up and running in the platform, leveraging, examples what other organizations or places have done to help you build your vision and get to where you need to be.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. And by practitioners, just so we're all on the same page, we mean people that have been in the seat using our solutions. They've been customers of ours or of others and have been project managers in this case, or have been asset managers if you're looking at the asset solutions, things of that nature. Are there any other questions? I've got the chat window up. Clarissa, did you get any others?
I have not received any questions at this time.
Excellent.
I see a raised hand in the attendees, but I'm not sure if that's on purpose.
Looks like it's from a dial-in number.
Yeah. Any questions on the phone there?
There's a question about the scenario planning module. Lynette, can you speak a moment about the scenario planning module a little bit?
I can.
Sure. What's the question there? Oh, just speak about the scenario planning. Okay. So when we talk about scenario planning, think of it as, here's my plan for a given time frame. So as an example, this is what we plan to do for fiscal year 22. That could be projects, it could be demands in the pipeline, but you're looking at all of that information from a financial, resource, and schedule perspective. Here's my plan, here's what I'm working towards. From the scenario, you can get into tracking and how we're doing from a status perspective. But what it also gives you is kind of what if scenarios. So you take that current plan that you have to somehow pivot. So you're able to create some what ifs, say there's a change in budget or whatever, that you're not able to fulfill the plan that you confirmed, right? So how do I pivot? How do I do some what if to explain to folks, this is our new plan going forward.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to find that slide here on specifically for the scenario planning.
Right. Nope, down one.
Here. Okay. Oh, here it is. Yeah, on the bottom right here. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. So this right here is, yeah, Lynette, right? What you were just alluding to. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So Elena, what you're looking at there, what's our budget based on the plan we have? How much are we into that budget for? You can look at resources here. Do we have enough resources to complete this plan? Are we over allocated from a resource perspective? A tool really for decision making as well, right? So how do I ask for more resources, or how do I say I can't commit to this list of projects here because I don't have the right resources, or in some cases not the right amount of funding.
Or it's probably safe to say, Lynette, that if funding changes, right? The project was funded and now you have to do your what if analysis. What if we have to take funding away from this project to fund another one? Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I see we're about a minute over. I'm happy to stay on for any other questions, but otherwise I'd like to say thank you and turn it back over to Clarissa.
Yes, I don't see any questions on my side, but mentioned earlier, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out and contact us offline. I want to say thank you to the team, and I'd like to thank all of our participants as well as our speakers for being with us today. We hope the information you received during this webinar has been helpful.